Chapter 27. Home. Along a dirt road through the rolling green plains, a covered wagon jostled and jumped under the warmth of the blazing sun. The train does not pass through Ponyville or something? Toy Sparkle poked her nose out from behind the wagon's fabric folds, the metal around her neck glistening a brilliant platinum. She pushed her mane out of her eyes and blinked into the sunlight, slowly focusing on the familiar sight in the distance. Festal houses wore quaint, straw-thatched roofs like hats, clumsily crowded around the towering town hall that marked the center of the village. A clear blue river ran its way across the plains and disappeared amongst the townhouses. The branches of a particular tree library stood out above the rooftops overhead. A small group of Pegasi cleared the way at the last scarce few tufts of cloud, making way for another broad sunny day. And somewhere, a small little recording studio / bookstore existed. Ponyville. Twilight's face lit up with a warm smile. It had only been a week, but it felt like forever ago that she had left for the display. To finally be back was a wonderful feeling, like a weight lifted from her shoulders, or a nagging thought in her mind finally sated. Not only was she home, but she was just a few minutes away from seeing her friends again. And if they missed her half as much as she missed them, it was going to be a fantastic reunion. "Are we there yet?" came a voice from behind Twilight. She pulled back inside the wagon and turned to face Trixie, who was down on her haunches, idly fiddling with a trio of magical orbs of light that encircled her horn. She wasn't wearing her cape. It was stowed in the saddlebags by her side, but the champion's medal still hung around her neck. "Almost," Twilight said, her voice bubbly. "I could see my library." The lights around Trixie's horn faded, and she looked up at Twilight properly, quickly becoming infected by that smile that lit her face. "Good. I'm starving." Twilight let out a little giggle. "Is that all you're excited about?" "That and the welcome back party," said Trixie, brushing back her mane in a lordly fashion. "I hope your friends have prepared a proper welcome for us." Twilight's smile grew wider still. "Oh, I'm sure they have. Pinkie Pie would never pass up a chance to throw a surprise party." Trixie seemed to shudder at the thought. Twilight couldn't imagine why. The wagon drew closer to Ponyville. The two mares picked up their saddlebags, and Twilight triple-checked that she had everything before slinging her own bags across her back. Stuffed as they were with the extra luggage she picked up in Manhattan, mainly the dress and saddles she bought for the dance, the straps wouldn't fit around her belly to fasten up. So she simply opted for balancing the bags on her back and stabilizing them with magic. She glanced down at the medal still hanging around her neck and smiled. "Can't wait to tell everyone." The wagon slowly came to a stop, and as Twilight waited for Trixie to finish strapping on her own saddlebags, the folds of the fabric at the back of the wagon were pushed to one side. A brown maned stallion, one of those who had been pulling the wagon, smiled up at them expectantly from the outside. "Ponyville! Welcome back, Miss Sparkle." With a last smile at one another, Twilight and Trixie started forwards. Together, they hopped out through the gap of the folds and landed on the familiar green grass of Ponyville Town Square. For a split second, Twilight had to think, while she recovered from the shock of landing with an overloaded bag slung across her back. She wondered why the drivers brought them this far into town, rather than dropping them at the wagon station. Once that split second had passed, it became terribly clear. "Surprise!" came the sound of 100 voices all at once. Looking up, Twilight saw before her what must have been half the population of Ponyville, mares and stallions, old and young, all smiling, meeting her eye with warm looks as she scanned the crowd. For a moment, she felt like she somehow wound up back in Manhattan, except it wasn't the exact same crowd that she performed for the display. These ponies were her friends and neighbors, and they all came out to meet her, to welcome her home. A wide smile made its way into Twilight's face, as she felt a heavy sort of happiness come over her, the kind that made her feel like crying. "What in the hoof is that?" said Trixie, completely oblivious to Twilight's reaction. She was looking up above at the crowd, at a baron hanging overhead. Twilight hadn't noticed it before, but she quickly did a double take as she saw what was written. "Welcome home, Twilight and Trixie." There was no doubt about it. This was Pinkie's hoofwork. "Twilight and Trixie," said Trixie. "How did they know we were both coming back?" "News travels pretty darn fast in this part of Ecclestia," came a familiar accented voice. Both the mares turned to the side, where Applejack laid the way for Pinkie, Rarity, and Fluttershy, as the group made their way through the crowd. They were all smiling or grinning, and as soon as Twilight caught sight of them, they broke into a collective grin towards her. "Applejack! Girls!" cried Twilight. The smile overcoming her face as her friends collided with her, wrapping her in a warm hug, was all too happy to receive. She closed her eyes and reveled in familiar warmth. Oh, I missed you all so much. It feels like I've been gone forever. I missed you too, Twilight, said Fluttershy. Yeah, it's been like 7 forever since you left. Pinkie shouted, cheerily, in the way only she could. A whole week is hardly forever. Rarity chuckled. But even so, it is far too long to have gone without seeing you, darling. It was. It really was, Twilight thought to herself. She would have been happy to hold the hug for a lot longer, but when her friends began to pull apart, she reluctantly stepped back. Once again, she suddenly felt a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She felt light and free and happy. The sentiment became a lot less profound as she realized her saddlebags did not fall off during her hug. Oh, no you don't! Applejack sighed, drawing up alongside and effortlessly slinging Twilight's hefty saddlebags across her own back. Wouldn't be right for somebody so educated and well-read to be carrying them around all by our lonesome now, wouldn't it? Twilight drew a hoof to her mouth with hide her gasp. How did you... Come on, Twilight, jerked Pinkie, bouncing forward to pull her crusty hug. Some of us do read the nose, you know. Twilight glanced at her slightly at Trixie, who simply shrugged. The news? Pinkie rolled her eyes and smiled and shook her head. She took a step to one side, revealing a certain baby dragon had been standing beside her. Spike held the newspaper's claws. Spike! Twilight cried, but at least having forced to meet him. But instead of showing the same enthusiasm to see her back, Spike simply folded his arms and raised an eyebrow at her. Twilight came to a stop and quirked her head, as Spike extended the newspaper to her. Confused, she magically took the copy of the Manhattan Gazelle from his grip and glanced at the front page. Trixie looked over at her shoulder. Their eyes widened. The headline, Princess Student Showmare Win the Manhattan Display, was pressed in bold letters on the front page. But it wasn't that, nor the article that began alongside it, that drew their eyes. It was the black and white picture of the two of them locking a passionate kiss in front of Princess Celestia. Girl stuff, huh? Said Spike. Twilight felt her cheeks light up a different red. Still staring at the paper, she began to stammer, oh, well, feathers. Her polite face gave a collective laugh. Spike, though he was always trying to look disapproving, smirking himself. At the least, they got my good side, Trixie muttered in Twilight's ear. Twilight just gave a sidelong glare. I must admit, Twilight, said Rarity, stepping forward to Smiley too. I am very impressed, although I didn't expect you to be the one to pose for the commerce quite so avidly. Twilight gulped at her. I was not posing. Sorry, Twilight, but you were totally posing, said Pinkie. Yup, said Applejack. You kind of were, Fluttershy chimed in. Hey, Twilight said, flustered. Trixie, help! Trixie, though, had a smirk on her face as she looked off to one side. Is he enjoying this? Applejack let out another chuckle and patted Twilight in the fetlock to show she was joking. Congratulations, Sugar Cube. The four pony friends, along with Spike, glanced and nodded at one another. They pulled back and parted, making room. For a moment, Twilight looked down in confusion, before she spotted the one pony had been missing from the group hug. Rainbow Dash stood there, with a faint smile on her face as she stared back at Twilight. There was a long pause, during which Twilight stood staring and smiling back at her. As Rarity had said, it hadn't really been that long since he'd seen another, but still. Hello, Rainbow, Twilight said quietly. Hey, Twilight, said Rainbow. Twilight started walking towards her. Twilight started to speak up, as she felt she should say something, but wasn't quite sure what it was. Rainbow, I am... Closing the last sentence of distance between them with a long stride, Rainbow pressed the hoof to Twilight's lips. There was a momentary, breathless pause, and then Rainbow pulled into a hug. Twilight felt a sudden heaviness in her nose, and her eyes began to water a little. She gladly returned the embrace. Congratulations, Egghead, Rainbow whispered. You kid flanked. Twilight nodded and sniffed. I did. Rainbow grunted as she said something. You still got that feather? Of course I have, Twilight half chuckled. It kept me connected to you, and all of you, when I was away. And believe it or not, it actually helped us win the display. It did, huh? Said Rainbow, pulling back slowly. Sounds like a part of a good story. You gotta tell me all about it. Twilight was hesitant to release Rainbow from the hug. She knew her own eyes were glistening with tears, and she felt the warmth of Rainbow's touch was the only thing keeping them from flowing freely. But the inevitable happened, and Rainbow did herself to look into Twilight's eyes. Immediately, the Pegasus tilted her head and offered a typical, whimsical smile. What's this for? She asked, Raising her hoof up to clumsily brush away the tears from Twilight's face. Nothing, said Twilight, shaking her head. As Rainbow finished mopping out Twilight's hurt cheek, Twilight managed to return to smile. It's good to see you again, Rainbow. Still smiling, Rainbow shook her head and let out a quiet huff through her nose. The kind that said, "What are we going to do with you?" Then she laid a firm hoof on Twilight's shoulder and said, "Good to see you too, Twi." A couple of voices muttered their approval in the background, followed by a few more. And a few more. They finally gave way to clamping and stomping hooves. Twilight turned her attention back to the crowd that had come to welcome her home. Blinking a couple of times as she realized it was actually applauding. It was as if they had just seen her perform another amazing feat of magic. Though again, it was more of a calm, friendly sort of applause that she got to display. Rainbow scratched her neck in her embarrassment. Twilight actually hid her eyes for a moment, but it only lasted a few seconds before both looked at each other again. A smirk crossed Rainbow's face as they mutually decided to make the most of it. She took Twilight's hoof and raced to the sky, almost toppling her in the process. "Twilight's back!" The party in Shikikyu Corner was lively and excited, carried very on late in the evening. Streamers and banners with various messages of congrats champions hung from the walls. Balloons bounced off the ceiling, and confetti glittered at the tables and floors, giving the whole place a not-so-subtle, sparkling blue and purple ambiance. Twilight's friends all gathered around to hear accounts of display, from fighting off Mittens to Chimera, to what the hotel was like, to the showdown with Flare and Rose, and as the evening got later, the conversation got more personal, and Rarity began to pry more. They danced at the main event ballroom. She did try to gather some information from them as well, such as what they had been up to, or what had happened since he had left, but her friends always seemed to steer the conversation back to her. She didn't really mind, though. It was actually quite exhilarating to have a story of an adventure of sorts to tell. It was like she was going to go anywhere again anytime soon, so there'd be plenty of time to catch up later. It was a great night, and a long one. Twilight would have been perfectly happy to stay up talking until the early hours of the morning. But after 3 consecutive yawns in as many minutes, Rarity decided to put her hoof down. "Darling, you must really get some sleep," she said. She had an odd smile on her lips, but her tone held that quiet power of a mother telling her child it was bedtime. "It's not fair of us to keep you up any longer." But Twilight tried to protest, but Rarity would have none of it. "Ada, there'll be plenty of time for all of us to speak tomorrow, but there won't be if you end up spending most of the day in bed because you stayed up too late. Now, go on. Be good, and make sure everyone knows not to disturb you." Eventually, Twilight surrendered. Thinking about it as she climbed the stairs to her room, she realized she was pretty tired after all. So she proposed the journey back to Ponyville had taken more effort than she expected. That, coupled with the mounting exhaustion from the display, had made for one very tired unicorn. Or two if she counted Trixie, which she did. The party was still racing downstairs, though Pinkie had agreed, with a smile and a confused wink, to keep the music down. Spike had decided to stay up and keep partying with the rest of her friends, so when Twilight closed the door to her loft, and left her alone with Trixie at last. "How do you ever get used to that amount of energy?" Trixie, dumping her saddlebags in the empty alcove. Twilight smiled, eyes half-lidded, and matched her own saddlebags up to the hook to her door, bent a little under the weight. "If I ever do get used to it, I'll let you know." Trixie gave a mildly amused grunt, which quickly morphed to an infectious yawn. She covered her mouth with her hoof and glanced around the room. Eventually, her eyes settled on the bed, raised up by a small stairwell. "You don't have to ask," said Twilight coolly, starting to climb herself. Just let me base the bed first." He flashed Trixie a smile, with so many return as he followed Twilight upstairs. "Make the bed? You haven't slept in it for a week, and I remember you making it twice before we left for the display." "Yes, but it never hurts to be thorough," Twilight chirped. Trixie rolled her eyes as Twilight began to fluff the pillows, her ear saying to Javette with magic. "Right! For a minute there, I forgot who I was talking to." "Ooh," Twilight emoted, before sticking her tongue out at Trixie. Trixie watched with thoughtful eyes as Twilight made the bed. There was something soothing about the way her partner worked her magic now. Calm, methodical, structured. Or maybe the relaxing part was simply knowing that when Twilight was done, they could both collapse into bed and get some much-needed rest. Rest, sure. "So, I've been thinking," said Twilight, still working away at the bed sheets. Trixie's sleeping smile widened. "There's a surprise." "Since the display's over now," Twilight went on, "what do you think you'll do next? Are you going back on your travels? Does your answer from before still stand?" Trixie gave an airy sort of nod. so you've been wondering when Twilight was going to bring this up. And so she hadn't prepared much for an answer.
I suppose I might, Trixie said. After all, with all the fame and adoration for the display, my traveling performance is bound to be 10 times as popular as it ever was. Ponies will come from miles around just to watch.
Twilight nodded sagely as she let the sheets down on her bed. You make an even bigger name for yourself. Maybe you become Equestria's most famous show mare, just like you always dreamed, right?
No doubt about it,
said Trixie, in half confirmation. Her lips curled up to one side and smirk.
But it seems something has come up, which might make making my performance back on the road a little difficult.
Having finished putting the testers on the bedspread, Twilight sat down on top of it and smiled at Trixie.
Oh,
said Twilight, and what might that be?
Oh, it's just a little thing,
said Trixie casually. She took a seat beside Twilight and fixed her eyes on the bookshelf on the opposite wall, still smirking.
I met a mare from a little town called Ponyville. At first, she was kind of annoying, a bit of a know-it-all.
She paused for effect.
But I think I might be starting to enjoy her company.
Twilight and Trixie sighed. Twilight made an obvious gulping sound. Perhaps he hadn't picked up on the joke, because her voice was quiet when she spoke.
I hope you're not going to let this mare keep you from your dream. Of course not. Rainbow Dash has agreed to follow me. What? Rainbow Dash? But... Of course. Did you really think that this was all going to be about me and you running off into the sunset?
And so did Trixie and Rainbow Dash run out to the sunset.
Bye!
You're not fooling anyone.
I know.
Trixie saw her partner a sidelong look, finding at Twilight's gaze and fallen to the floor.
Of course not, Trixie assured her. Nothing will keep the great and powerful Trixie from her dream.
Twilight smiled wide with what might have been pride, but her eyes, even if Trixie hadn't had a clear look at him, told that pride wasn't all there was.
Unfortunately, Trixie continued, this mare has a life of her own here. She has a home, friends, her studies. She might come with me if I asked her to. I'd probably really enjoy it, but I wouldn't want her to leave everything behind.
You know, she technically doesn't have to, Trixie. She could stay behind. You could always come back. Finally, Twilight lifted her head to meet Trixie's eyes. The smile on her face fallen a little bit, but it wasn't completely gone. More than anything, she was confused.
So, said Trixie, if I want to stay with her, that means I'm going to have to find a way to keep my show going without traveling around so much.
Twilight licked her lips anxiously. And do you want to stay with me? Or with her? There was actually a hint of worry in her tone. Which was odd, considering everything the two of them had been through. There should have been no doubt in Twilight's mind.
Maybe she just needs reminding, Trixie pondered.
And so, after a smirk and playful roll of her eyes, Trixie leaned in to play a long kiss on Twilight's lips. She felt Twilight draw a sharp but unstartled breath through her nose. She accepted the gesture. Trixie was still smirking as she held the touch for a good long while. After Twilight got the message. When she finally pulled back, she saw that Twilight was smiling too, looking as she felt a bit silly.
Right, said Twilight. Good answer.
The two shared a quiet giggle.
Well, in that case, I might have something that could help us out, said Twilight.
Trixie raised a brow.
Oh, really? I said I've been thinking, didn't I?
Trixie smiled.
Alright, humor me. Do you have something in mind?
With another giggle, Twilight shook her head.
Nope. I'm afraid you'll just have to wait and see.
Trixie raised a brow.
You think you could keep secrets from Trixie?
She leaned forwards, so her snout was barely an inch from Twilight's, giving her bedroom eyes a sultry smile.
I have ways of making ponies talk, you know.
Twilight seemed impervious to the threat. She leaned in and touched down with Trixie, gently pushing back against her.
You're welcome to try, but you got to be patient. Think you can manage that, Miss Great and Powerful? Oh, I can manage it, said Trixie, pushing against Twilight. If it comes to that.
A week had passed, and it had been a busy one for Twilight. Despite the showmare's best efforts, Trixie remained in the dark about Twilight's plan, and that thought made the prospect of finally revealing his secret that much more exciting. As he stood out in the grass at Ponyfield Park, Twilight took a deep breath of that sweet country air, such as he couldn't miss while staying in Manhattan.
Ready, AJ?
She called, looking over towards Applejack, squinting in the noontime sunlight. As Farm Pony smiled around the trio of ropes in her mouth, gave a firm nod. After nodding back, Twilight turned her eyes to the sky.
Rainbow Dash? Fluttershy?
To Pegasus, each holding a rope of their own, waved to signal that they were ready. With a satisfied smile, Twilight lit up her horn and grabbed a pair of ropes at her own hose. Like the others, these ropes were attached to a complex pulley system that rose high into the air, designed and set up by Twilight herself. She spent days planning this, and had a very good feeling it was going to work. All right, 1, 2, 3! As one, the 4 ponies pulled back their ropes. From the ground in front of them, wooden beams and boards began to rise up, guided by the pulleys. As well as constructed as their system was, there was still a lot of wood, so it took a bit of effort. Twilight grounded her hoses to the grass as she focused her magic. One by one, the wooden pieces began to come together. In barely half a minute, everything had fallen into place. Okay, let's go! Said Twilight, as she stayed her spell and let the ropes fall to the ground. Her friends did the same. The pulley system fell away of its own accord, leaving the newly erected wooden structure standing. This is planned, but they weren't done yet. Pinkie Pie! Rarity! Twilight called. The two of them were on it even before she opened her mouth. Pinkie rolled her party can to a stop before the structure, whilst Rarity stood by his side, horn light of brilliant blue. As ever, when Pinkie brought out her can, the party plane was brimming with excitement and grinning from ear to ear. Twilight found herself grinning too. Ready? She called, Fire! With a yell of, Woo! Pinkie reared up on her hind legs, brought her forehoofs down and stomped back onto the can. Bang! Confetti, streamers, and all manner of brightly colored decorations shot forth from the can towards the structure. On cue, Rarity jumped forwards and reached out with her magic and covered the projectiles in the same blue glow as her horn, grinding to the trajectory. A split second later, the blue glow turned to white and glowed brighter and brighter, and soon reached the point that Twilight had to cover her eyes with a hoof to avoid from being blinded. Once she opened them again, her grin became wide, toothy, and practically beaming. Before her, there stood a grand wooden stage, literally glistening in the midday sun. A few short steps led up to the sleek, wide performance platform, which held a huge amount of room to move about. A red curtain flowed gracefully down to make up the stage back, leaving a little room behind it for the ponies to move about unseen. All over the brilliant structure, there hung purple and blue banners, streamers, and stars. At the very top of the structure, in the center so everyone could see, was a folded-up wooden carving, which depicted a pair of cutie marks. Twilight was still smiling as her friends joined to look over the fruits of their labor. You sure this champion thing ain't going through your head? Said Applejack, scrutinizing his stage with a doubtful look.
Huh?
Said Twilight intelligently.
Yeah, not just this much.
Pinkie chimed in, frowning in mock approval.
What do you mean?
Said Twilight, glancing between them and the stage. She had the vaguest idea what they were talking about. A scratchy chuckle drew her eyes upwards.
Don't listen to them, Twilight. It looks awesome.
Yes, awesome, said Fluttershy quietly, smiling as he settled down beside Twilight. Applejack chuckled and bumped her on the shoulder. That really does. Well, I guess we ain't the ones you're in with the police. Realizing that Applejack had been making a joke, Twilight let out a quiet sigh of relief. She thought to smile again to turn to look over her shoulder. Well, Trixie, what do you think? Twilight's friends parted to make way for the showmare who had been standing in the wings. Trixie ambled forwards with slowly gaze fixed on the beautiful stage before her. Her eyes were wide like saucers as he came to a stop beside Twilight.
It's very...
Trixie gulped, clearly struggling to find the words.
Very neat.
Pinkie piped up.
Like I said, nice.
Rarity shoved a hoof in her mouth to silence her, offering Twilight a gentle smile, which was greatly returned.
Thank you, Twilight Sparkle,
Trixie manced, grabbing Twilight's attention back. Trixie met her eyes now, with a proud and joyful smile on her face.
It's perfect.
Twilight tilted her head and gave a wide, illustrious smile of her own.
I'm glad you like it.
The two of them stayed, staring at each other's eyes as the world began to fade around them. It was one of those moments Twilight had become very fond of over this past week. Hey, is it raining? It looks awesome! Suddenly, a erupting chorus of voices drew Twilight and Trixie to the side. There, a fair distance back from Twilight's group of friends, a crowd was gathering. About a dozen ponies there, with more coming in to join them from the town square. Twilight smiled again and turned to the bemused-looking Trixie. Shall we? Trixie blinked as he gave her a questioning look.
Meow!
Twilight waved a hoof to the gathered crowd.
Everybody here is waiting to see our performance for the display, she said.
They are? Well, that goes double for us, said Applejack as the group rallied into her one side. They all had various degrees of expectant smile on their faces. I only got half a dozen ponies for Caroline to see be here every minute, she had, plus a couple from Mayhem, and those two over there, she pointed to the crowd, they came all the way from Trondheim. Trixie glanced at Twilight for confirmation. Twilight just smiled.
How? Why?
Applejack rolled her shoulders. Mom mentioned to a couple of my cousins that you're all going to be performing today, and I just might let it slip in casual conversation. She went to Twilight.
It's not exactly a huge crowd, said Twilight. I decided to keep things small for now, because I wasn't sure whether you liked the idea. But if you do, I know we can reach a much bigger audience. And where the money is concerned, some of the local stores have already raised to cover a cut of their profits for the extra business our shows will bring. We couldn't even sell tickets to private shows if you wanted to, and,
She trailed off, realizing she was going to rant. With caught to clear her throat a timid smile, she simply said,
What do you think?
Trixie's eyes were still wide as she moved her gaze from Twilight, past her friends and over the stage and the gathered crowd. For a pony was never surprised, Trixie certainly looked the part. When at last the show mare seemed to regain her sense of herself, she turned to face Twilight again. Trixie blinked a couple of times. Now cut to the smile, she offered Twilight a hoof.
I think that our audience is waiting.
Twilight gave another goofy grin, overwhelmed by the warmth of happiness. On another thought, she took Trixie's hoof and allowed herself to be pulled upwards. The two of them fell on four hooves, trotted to the stage, amidst cheers and applause from the little crowd. Go get it, Twilight! Break a leg! Twilight halted on the stage with her partner, already flexing her legs and laying up her horn to test her magic. With Trixie by her side, she felt all the excitement and next to none of the anxiety that came with being in front of an audience of ponies. She felt as confident, excited, and happier than she had ever been.